round 4 or 5 or 6 of COVID, whatever. Yeah.
We see what's happening in Europe and the UK with the Delta variant.
Yeah. Okay, I have 7 p.m. Is everybody ready? Are we online? Are we?
You are live on YouTube.
Thank you. Welcome everybody to the regular meeting of council for July 6, 2021. And we acknowledge that we are meeting in the traditional territory of the Squamish Nation. At the onset of this meeting, I'd like to make a couple comments, and I'm going to turn over to the corporate officer. One is just to draw everybody's attention to the annual report for 2020, which is online now on our website. Please take time to read it. It will be on the council agenda in a couple of weeks for approval. But in the meantime, it's the opportunity for the public to have a look at it and provide any comment they have. Corporate officer, I'm going to turn over to you to talk about a couple of topics. I believe you have 2. I hear you, Rebecca.
Thank you. You will notice we've made our best guess at time limits on the agenda. It's not meant to be a fixed, hard and fast rule, and it's not meant to be strictly enforced, but it was intended to help us try to better assess how full the agendas are and how much you're trying to fit into your meeting time limits, so that we know when we may need another meeting or to move items to another meeting. We will be using a timer in 2 places, which will be a new thing. So we will be using a timer when we have the delegations, as they're meant to be 10 minutes per delegation with 5 minutes for questions after. And we will use them again during inquiries, as the total time for inquiries is supposed to be 10 minutes. So that's meant to try and give us some sense and feel for how we're managing our time during our meetings, so we can be more effective going forward. I don't know that we will continue it over the long term. I know a lot of places do this and put time limits, and we're finding it helpful already with trying to get a handle on whether or not you're going to be able to make it through an agenda in the time that you have for your meetings. So just be aware that we are trying this out to see how it goes. And I would welcome your feedback on it if you have a perspective on that. Also, you will notice that there was a delegation that was listed with regard to short-term rentals that's been removed from the agenda. The reason being that since it's been almost a year since your public hearing on the short-term rental bylaw, while there has been information that has come to council through correspondence and whatnot, and in addition, this delegation, is pretty clear that due to the length of time that has passed since the public hearing, we'll be having another public hearing on that issue. So you can decide whether you wish to rescind that draft bylaw or proceed with it in some revised format. And we feel that the delegation, rather than give it twice, would be that their time would be better spent if they presented at that public hearing. So they'll be bringing their presentation forward at the public hearing. I spoke with them today, and they're okay with that, as well as some of the other people who've also been sending you correspondence. So that's the reason that change happened in the agenda. Thank you, Ms.
I'd also like to acknowledge the recent destruction in Lytton. This is where Rebecca was as a CAO prior to coming to town of Gibsons with us. And she has many contacts up there. And Rebecca, you just want to comment on how things, from your perspective and your contacts there, how things are going for them?
I spoke with 3 of my former colleagues on Thursday morning. It's devastating and it's heart-wrenching. They're suffering shock and trauma and grief. It's a devastating loss. I'm hoping we can arrange something here in Gibsons for donations. All but 4 of the former staff that I'm aware of, though I've been away since about a year now, so I may not be the most up to date, but all but 4, I believe, have lost their homes. One of the staff has lost both of his parents in the fire. So they are reeling. And I know Mark had a meeting yesterday at 2, and he has more recent information than I. He spoke with the CAO. I'm hoping to touch base with her again in the next couple of days if I can. I know they are quite overwhelmed and heavily worked and burdened with what they need to do. So I'm trying to respect that space. But I can't even, words can't even. And I just, all I can do is keep them in my thoughts and prayers.
Councillor Kroll?
It's okay, sir. I just noticed that the CAO was in the attendees and he has been moved over.
Yeah, we should acknowledge that our CAO has actually experience in disaster recovery with communities. And so the province has been in touch with him and he's been in touch with a group. They're looking at this project sort of thing. And I've suggested to him that if he needs time, if he needs to take time to meet with them, just to make sure he does that, because whatever we can do for another community to help at this time, whether it be the issues we're facing, whether the First Nations communities or in Lytton and other communities, we share those issues because it could be for us one day. So we need to acknowledge that. So, well, thank you. And that was not timed. We haven't started the meeting yet. No. So we will now call the meeting to order. And I have on my watch 7:07 and ask for approval of the agenda. And note, Council, that the agenda has changed. So Councillor Kroll, Councillor DeAndrade, thank you for approval. All in favor? Thank you. And we'll move on then to adopt the minutes firstly. So we have minutes for June 1. And someone care to move those minutes? Councillor Kroll, Councillor Lumley, all in favor of the minutes? Councillor DeAndrade?
Yes, Mayor. This was the minutes that there was a motion that was released from in camera.
Yeah. And was that corrected?
It's on page 14.
Yeah.
And I will. Sorry, Rebecca.
Yeah.
Rebecca.
I don't mean to, yes, I don't mean to interrupt you, Councillor DeAndrade. But I'm glad you said something. I'll let you speak first, and then if I need to, I'll speak further.
Okay, I appreciate. It's just it's on page 14, motion R 2021-236, and I just want to have the opportunity because the motion shows it as I'm opposed, which is awkward because I'm environmental conscious, and the motion was to direct staff to work with Green Lane Homes, the development company at Gospel Rock, and to develop solutions to protect the buffer area adjacent to the proposed conservation covenant area on Block 7, so as to ensure the sensitive lands outside the covenant area as indicated in blue in figure 6 of the Diamond Head consulting map dated April 17, 2019 are protected as quickly as possible. And the reason, as I was opposed, is I actually made the original motion, and the original motion included to work with Green Lane Homes, the SCCA, and TLC. And I thought that was really important because the SCCA is the organization that has been, since the onset, involved with the conservation of Gospel Rock. And they are fully aware of the ecological value of the area. And I felt that not including them and not including the TLC as well, which are the covenant partner, would not be appropriate. So that's the reason I oppose the motion. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor of receipt? Or we receipt or adopting? Thank you. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Minutes of regular council meeting for June 15, 2021. Motion to adopt. Councillor Kroll, Councillor Ladwig, all in favor? Thank you. And minutes of the zoning bylaw public hearing, June 15, 2021. Someone care to move those? Councillor Kroll again, Councillor DeAndrade, all in favor? This is for receipt. All in favor? Thank you. This is a receipt. Thank you. Well, now, before we go on, I'm just going to ask for a motion to receive now all of the committee reports and reports on the agenda as well as correspondence, and I don't think there's any bylaws, but all of the matters on the agenda tonight for receipt. Councillor Lumley, Councillor Diandrad, thank you all in favor. Thank you very much. It just saves us some of those minutes that are counted against those items. Any business arising from the minutes? We can see. Our first item then, item 5 is delegations of petitions, and we have Johan Stroman, Heartwood Solutions Consulting, Sunshine Coast Tourism, and Sustainable Coast. Mr. Stroman, you are here, and make sure you are unmuted. And
good evening, Mayor and councillors. Thank you very much.
Johan, you have 10 minutes for your presentation, by the way.
Thank you. I am just going to
Hey, there you are.
start my screen share. Here we go. Can you see this?
We can. Looks like a fort. Yeah.
So good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a short presentation on behalf of Sustainable Sunshine Coast, which is a project initiative of Sunshine Coast Tourism. And the presentation is titled The Business of Sustainable Sunshine Coast. I believe Paul Kamen was unavailable this evening. Paul, are you there? Yeah, I don't think he was available. So in short, this project is an element of the destination development strategy for the Sunshine Coast. So it's a collaborative effort, or the result of a collaborative effort over a number of years in the region to manage the destination collaboratively. And as a pilot project, the work that's being conducted is to ensure that the key learnings can be documented and shared with other planning areas and teams. And you'll notice that the descriptor here is managing tourism growth and ensuring positive visitor experiences with a balance on community capacity and protection of natural and cultural places. So we turn to the vision story from the Sunshine Coast Destination Development Strategy, and I'll give you a moment to read that yourselves. The development of the Sunshine Coast as a destination community includes both the North and the South Sunshine Coast, so from Lund to Langdale. And in the past few years, tourism globally is seeing a rise in sustainable destination development, and there's a growing interest by visitors globally for strong sustainability practices. We see it in BC, in Canada, and internationally, with the rise in standardized certification programs tied to the Paris Climate Accord and United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And this initiative, which is piloting this summer and running into the fall, has 3 core objectives, and they are to raise sustainability awareness, increase the uptake of actions, and build interest in conversations on sustainability on the Sunshine Coast. The approach is intended to be positive, collaborative, and solutions-oriented, and we're happy to already have had a number of presentations very well received by local government and other agencies such as SCREDO and the Transportation Action Group on the Sunshine Coast. Our summer focus for 2021 is on water conservation, alternative transportation modes. And in the fall, we will pivot towards energy conservation and supporting local operators in the tourism industry to explore ways that they can reduce their energy footprint and their operating costs in doing so. Now, we're not short on the Sunshine Coast of local leaders, and just a couple we can profile here. In Sargent Bay, we've got Point House Suites that have actually been awarded the Green Tourism Gold Standard in Canada. And something a little closer to home in Gibsons, Up the Creek Backpackers has been running really an amazing program for about 20 years now, which features water conservation signage throughout in areas with running water, and very well developed recycling and energy management programs, as well as really strong bicycle amenities and local bikes available for visitors to use. So our pilot project goals this summer are supporting businesses in reducing their operating costs, addressing climate change and water scarcity, supporting low impact tourism, and enabling collaborative and supportive practices to grow local business opportunities. And this is coming off of the water conservation elements of this project, which are kicking off in just a few days through visitor centers on the Sunshine Coast from south to north, is based on work that was originally developed at the SCRD and that we have adopted for this project in order to support businesses in finding ways that they can reduce their water usage and support alternative transportation. So our action plan is providing opportunities for both businesses and individuals to take a water conservation pledge online. And we're providing conservation tips and support. And in the realm of transportation, we're promoting alternate modes, walking, biking, busing, car sharing, ride sharing, and electric vehicles and e-bikes, and supporting cycling through promotion and support and enhanced infrastructure. And we'll be sharing success stories and shared actions via social media and the local newspaper, as well as off of the website. And the website, due to launch in just a few days, will feature the 2 action areas, links to local government, and you'll notice that the town of Gibsons is featured here. We certainly hope that we receive the support of the town to provide links to services related to both water conservation and alternative transportation, so that people are aware in what ways local government is supporting this work. Just to give you a sense of the print material, which is now available via visitor centers for operators, we have the Water Conservation Pledge, which is based on 3 basic steps, and it's really focused on them reviewing usage and setting a goal for reduced water usage, and then promoting a conservation culture in-house. Similarly, we provide water conservation tips, and we recognize that this has been a really difficult year, and that's a strong understatement for business. And recognizing that, we're really encouraging businesses to take the steps that are low-hanging fruit, but we'll speak also towards the end of the presentation on ways that we think local government can help support some of these actions for local business. We also provide tips for visitors when they're staying at a local B&B or at a hotel or motel on the Sunshine Coast, so that they're aware, and also that they see ways that they can share the kinds of actions that they're doing while they're visiting. Through collaboration with the alternate transportation group on the Sunshine Coast, we've also provided a handy tip chart to operators and businesses on the Sunshine Coast on how they can attract more cyclists to their business. And particularly this applies to accommodations, but also restaurants and cafes on the coast. So how are we asking for the town's support? The key elements here, as with all local government, is support and amplifying the message via Gibsons communication channels, finding ways to integrate the work of water conservation and alternate transportation and related efforts that the town is already engaged in. And it is a nominally supported program in terms of funding. So even the simple support of having in-kind printing would be very helpful. And we're certainly encouraging the incentivization of businesses to upgrade infrastructure, such a simple thing as providing a fee reduction or a rebate towards something like a pre-rinse valve for a restaurant can make a big difference in the amount of water that's used in a facility, while still allowing obviously the operations in the kitchen to go in a smooth and normal fashion. But that cost reduction through an incentive would be a big help to reduce the hurdle. And similarly, coordinating bike parking and e-bike charging opportunities in the community hub areas. And if you would indulge me for just a half minute more, I'd like to just touch on a couple of key opportunities that we've identified that we'd like to propose that the town consider for the coming months of the summer. One of these is tied to enhanced bicycle parking. And bicycle use and biking is on the rise, certainly in North America, and it's been on rise in BC and in the Vancouver and on the Sunshine Coast. And with the increase in a lot of infrastructure in Gibsons, but on the Sunshine Coast on the whole. So obviously anyone who's been out and about in Gibsons can see the amount of work that's going on to support bicycle lanes and sharrows. Those are powerful steps to support more effective use of cycling and e-bikes as an alternate transportation means. But we'd like to propose that in order to really support that effectively, enhanced parking is key at the endpoints. And I think there are opportunities here to enhance safety and not detract from current uses. The BC Active Transportation Design Guide provides clear directions, and you can see really here it's focused on convenience, making sure that the parking spots are located close to where cyclists are going, that they're safe and in highly visible areas, and that they accommodate a variety of models and designs. Currently in Lower Gibsons, there are 4 bike racks available between Gower Point Road and Marine Drive that are in proximity to 5 Corners. Tapworks Brewing, Gibsons Museum, the library, and Town Hall, of course, have their racks. But in terms of the core areas where visitors are prone to go, there are only 4. And some of the challenges that creates is cyclists are leaning their bikes up against buildings so that they're viewable from where they're seated. They're using trees or lamp standards or railings, as you can see here, which creates conflict and obstructions for pedestrians, drivers, and passengers exiting or entering their vehicles. You can see here, this picture just taken a few days ago, you can see bicycles parked in a variety of spots and pedestrians having to weave, and you'll notice the proximity to the vehicles of those bicycles without a designated parking point. So Sunshine Coast Tourism, through the Sustainable Sunshine Coast project, identified 3 areas in downtown Gibsons where there's opportunity to really enhance parking. And in particular, we already know that we're using sidewalks, and they might still be opportunities in lower density areas. But the challenge here, and there's a photo here from the BC Alternate Transportation Guide, is the margins are small to both pedestrian areas and parking areas. There are no current e-bike parking points or charge points. And so really, these spots are not excellent for convenient, safe, or good access points in many cases. Our proposal is to consider a bike Corral pilot. And this set in one of the parking spots in this core area in downtown Gibsons would support dedicated parking for 10 to 15 bikes. And as a trial into early fall, with conduit run to e-bike charge points, could support an actual increase in the number of visitors to the local services, restaurants, cafes, and ice cream shops, while still keeping 67 parking spots on the road between School Road and Wynn Road. So other locations that are nearby that would be serviced by the simple addition of bicycle racks would be some of the restaurants just below that main strip, but also include Molly's, Smitty's, and Lanitas, each of which would be supported by having an additional rack put in. I'll stop the presentation there and take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Johan. I appreciate your presentation and time. I think you are aware we do have a grant that includes putting e-bike racks in Lower Gibsons. The location, I don't think has been finally determined, but I think this will possibly help us help our staff to kind of work that through as they work on that. The other aspect is you don't mention in your presentation, but we do have the walk on water signage and walking tour in Lower Gibsons, and that would be good to feature for people getting off their bikes or just walking around the lower areas, the walk on water. So, but thank you for that, and I'll turn to council. Council, any thoughts or comments? Questions? Council Diandra?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, Johan. I think just given to what's happening in the province, is there any last minute possibility to discuss like with in this program like fire awareness, fire safety education? Because, you know, we all know that most fires are provoked by humans. Who knows, some of them are visitors. So I think we are already experienced huge crises in the province. And I think fire, you know, even in the spectrum of littering, or it seems to be the number one priority. So I hope there is this possibility.
Joanne, could you
Joanne, I
stop
can
sharing,
take
please?
this question. I'm here. Hi, everyone. It's Paul
Hi,
King.
Paul.
Joanne, could you stop sharing, please?
Yes, thank you.
That's a very important question you brought up, Councillor. And what I can tell you for this project, we've already developed the scope, but I think the messaging around fire safety, we can certainly push out through Sunshine Coast Tourism's social media channels, because I think that's extremely important. We recently had a fire in the Cathet region that was put out just a few days ago. So it's top of mind up and down the coast here. So I'm certainly going to talk to my social media manager about it. So
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Councillor Corral?
Thank you, Mayor Beamish, and thank you for the presentation, Johan. Just a couple of points. The area you were suggesting for the sort of bike parking station, that is the only commercial loading bay for that whole stretch of both sides of Gower Point. Quite often, if you're down there, you'll notice that there's, large trucks there trying to, offload, materials to the various businesses. So I think it's a great idea to have a parking spot, for bikes and a charging station, but that possibly isn't the best thing. The other thing, and again, going forward with your documentation to cyclists, is particularly when they go off-road, that they, and I don't know the best way to do it, but that they become very familiar with the difficulty of some of our bike trails and parks. There've been a couple of occasions where volunteer first responders have had to go in and extricate tourists who couldn't meet the challenges of some of our bike parks. And I think it's something that needs to be, cyclists coming in here, if they've been used to, riding their bike through Stanley Park, that's one thing, but suddenly taking on Mount Elphinstone or the trails between Elphinstone and the B&K Road, there's some challenges there. And it does fall back on volunteers in the community to go in and rescue these people and carry them out for an hour and a half. So, I don't want to discourage people, but they need to be made aware of, it's not just a ride in the park. There's some very challenging bike conditions here on the coast.
Thank you, Councillor. I think I'll address the first point on the specific parking location. I think the thinking was that something that's central and highly visible beyond the loading bay is the intention. And part of that comes from the DC alternate transportation standards guide, is that highly visible is good because people who are bringing those cycles, whether they're locals or visitors, want to be able to see where their bicycle is located. And because it would be the first spot after the loading, that's the suggested place. We're certainly amenable to taking one of those spots for the pilot. But the idea is that that we're providing something that's set aside. So we'd certainly be interested in having the conversation to quickly locate one spot. And we're quite confident that, as a lot of businesses, we've been in communication with the Downtown Vancouver Business Improvement Association, and they indicated that they completely flipped their perspective in just the last half dozen years on cycling. And they're now strong advocates because they actually see that 25% of the users of business services, restaurants, cafes, are cyclists. So they're actually increasing the number of visitors to their stores and shops. So we feel confident this would be a boost to that core area, in particular, just profiling the Sunshine Coast as a sustainable place and as a place where people want to ride. I don't know, Paul, if you want to speak to kind of the safety message for riders that Councillor Corral brought up.
Well, that goes across the board for mountain bikers and hikers and anyone coming to the Sunshine Coast and exploring the backcountry. There are risks that they need to be aware of. And I think improved signage is part of the SIRP grant funds that are hopefully coming in these projects will hopefully enhance that messaging, because that's a problem across the province.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Johan and Paul, for your presentations. And once again, you're doing a great service and for the coast. We really appreciate that, both from a tourism and the tourism economics for our businesses. It's just fantastic. So thank you very much. And I hope you guys have a great summer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Council, move on now to committee reports. And the first report, 7.1, Committee of the Whole. And this is the receipt of the minutes of the Committee of the Whole, which we've already done. So we're going to move on. Housing strategy of the town of Gibsons. And this is 7.1.2. Recommendation that council endorses the housing strategy of the town of Gibsons, and that council directs staff to arrange a workshop with council to prioritize the actions listed in the housing strategy recommendations, and further the staff return the short-term rental strategy bylaw for further review by council in September 2021. Somebody care to move the recommendations? Councillor Kroll, Councillor Lumley. Further discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Opposed? None. Thank you. Councillor Kroll, you have something else you want to say?
You missed item 6, sir, inquiries.
Did I miss inquiries? Oh, there it is. I had something written right beside it. Okay, we'll come back to inquiries. And Councillor Diandrade, did you want to say something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor Mimish. It's just the first point about endorsing. Obviously I endorse in principle, but there was one concern about densification, which I know we are going to prioritize, but I just want to make sure that endorse doesn't mean we are going ahead regardless, because I think certain steps there might be, we might have to do other studies, for example, wait for certain reports. Is it what I understand? If we endorse.
The second recommendation says that we're going to have a workshop to prioritize the actions listed in the housing recommendation. So that's when we'll get into the detail. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Just want to make sure.
Councillor Ladwig.
Maybe it's just my recollection of that discussion, but I thought the workshop was going to be a little bit broader than that. Like we were talking about incorporating the short-term rental policy possibly into our housing strategy. There was a number of elements that didn't show up that we were talking about kind of in developing, and
Don't recall them as part of the resolution though. I mean, that's part of the discussion and that's part of the prioritizing that we would do when we talk, but I don't recall that as being part of the resolution.
so the point of it then will just be to prioritize the list that we reviewed last time.
And or add to it. I mean, you can add to a list too when you're going through it. And we're bringing the short-term rentals forward. That's what we discussed, sort of thing. So, yeah, you have a different recollection. I don't. Corporate officer, was there more to the resolution that you had?
No, I only have myself visible in anticipation of inquiries. I have nothing to add to what you've already said.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, well, but make sure that when we have that discussion, we expand the options. And,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, I apologize to everybody. Let's go back to inquiries. 6 inquiries. So to the corporate officer.
Yes, if anyone has any questions, please raise your hand. I see no hands raised, Mayor Beamish.
Okay, thank you. And we've saved 10 minutes there, just like that. Okay. Okay, we'll go on to the Committee of the Whole for July 6th. And this one here on the 7.2.1, I have to recuse myself as I own a apartment in that building. And Councilor Lumley, you're gonna.
Well, I was just gonna maybe make a suggestion that we can't talk about cycling anymore in this meeting. So if someone tries to bring up cycling, then we just have to say, sorry, we're all done today.
You can try that later on.
Okay, thanks. Oh, point of order, cycling.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to, as I say, recuse myself from the next item and turn the gavel over to Councilor Diandrade.
Councillor Ladwig, would you like to speak?
Yes, and I need to recuse myself as well from this item.
Understood.
All right, you may proceed. They're in the waiting room.
Thank you. Council, we have a resolution 7.21, which is a ZA 2021-02, 703 Gibsons Way. The recommendations is that zoning amendment by law number 1065-61, 2021 be forwarded to council for first and second reading, and that an electronic public hearing be scheduled to begin at 6 p.m. on July 2021 as authorized under ministerial order M 192/2020. So Council, who would like to move the recommendations? Councilor Lumley, Councilor Crowe. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Approved. Corporate Officer, I think you can call the mayor and Councilor Ledwig back.
They should be on their way back in. Thank you.
I'm just correcting my view here. Okay. Thank you. Councilor Ledwig's back as well. So we'll move on to the next item. 7.2.2. This came from the committee of the whole this afternoon, and this is traffic calming at Gower Point Road. There was a resolution, and I want to be very clear that we need to get this resolution right. That the developer at the Gospel Rock Block 7 site be authorized to proceed with the Gower Point traffic calming projects, and that other traffic calming design options be returned to council for review in September 2021. Council, is this what you want these resolutions to say? Chance now to reflect on them. And I would, for example, we talked about the second part of this resolution, traffic calming design options and costs. I believe we were looking for costs to come forward as well. We return to council review. Councilor Lumley?
Maybe and costs over and above
Yeah.
Developers' requirements based on the development agreement.
Yeah.
Something like that. It's just a suggestion.
Councilor Ledwig?
Again, I feel like I'm confused. I thought we agreed to authorize the developer to carry on with this project.
Yeah.
But not necessarily the traffic calming components, because we're still talking about them.
They're looking at design, and this is part of the development permit process. So as I said, they're probably 2 years out from any work, but this authorizes them to proceed with continued work on the design. We can override on that with a different design or different elements as council chooses to spend additional money. But right now they've been authorized to kind of proceed. It doesn't mean that there's going to be work actually done. It's corporate officer.
Yes, I actually, we had been working on capturing what you wanted in between meetings, and it slipped a little. Originally, it was that the developer at the Gospel Rock Block 7 site be authorized to proceed with the design of the Gower Point traffic calming project. So I see the word design or those two words got dropped. And because of the need then to work out between us the second part. So if council agrees, the first sentence in my notes read that the developer at the Gospel Rock Block 7 site be authorized to proceed with the design of Gower Point Road traffic calming project.
Yeah, that's my recollection as well. Councilor Lumley?
Yeah, just as a side note, like an addendum to it, it's like, I guess after our meeting today, it was like kind of like, I don't know if concerning is a little bit too harsh, but I mean, the fact that the director of infrastructure, and it's like nothing against the director of infrastructure, but, or any person in any position, but the fact that they have the ability to okay the traffic calming design as per the agreement, I think that maybe we should review or maybe look at certain elements of okaying things when, you know, public safety, like a risk of public safety or something that where like maybe it overlaps or encompasses what council or the mayor and council, like what would reflect back on us as far as our duties. You know what I'm saying? Like if somebody says, hey, well, that's my right to like make this decision, and then the public jump on us and we go, well, we didn't even have we had no input on that design, right? So as part of this, maybe in September or whenever, I know it seems like jobs are stacking up on top of jobs, but it's just a little disconcerting for me that I think that maybe if council has so much, they feel so strongly about something, but that decision could ultimately be taken out of their hands, when it's the repercussions of any decision just falls right back on council. So anyway, just a thought from today's meeting. I just wanted to bring that up now, and maybe we could maybe review that after the holidays.
Yeah, there's lots in there to think about, and I don't want to get into it right now, but I think we also want to be cautious to what we take on, because we are not engineers, we are not designers, and we may be concerned about public image, but we also have to be concerned about safety, and so that those things go hand in hand. But we can talk about that later on, how we do that. Okay. So have we captured that resolution then, that we're looking at be authorized to proceed with the design of the Gara Point Road traffic calming project, and that other traffic calming design options and costs? I don't know that we want to say over and above. I think we just need to say cost, because if we're talking traffic lights and things like that, we just need to know what the cost is. So they return to council for review in September 2021. Okay. And, we may not get a full package at that time, where we're only allowing just over 2 months of busy times and vacation times and stuff like that. So it would be a work in progress. So, but might be an opportunity though to add to or focus a list for staff. Corporate officer or CAO?
Yes, if I could, your worship, just to follow up on the discussion and the point raised by Councillor Lumley, and then the costs, it will be estimated costs, because it will not be detailed design nor construction drawings, which even in today's market, it's hard to get firm costs when you even get the plans developed that far. So it'll be, order of magnitude estimates basically on the various options.
Yeah, Councillor Ludwig.
Were we also going to get funding options with those costs? Because there's different ways to go about this. There's grants. So I don't want it to come to us and say, yeah, the lights are going to be 500,000. Well, I guess that's off the table. When in fact there's multiple grants we could apply for, or there's SCRD support. Who knows, right?
Yeah, let's see where we are in that month and a half that we're giving them, or 2 months that we're giving them to do the work, and see if see what work still remains to be done. But I would say we may have some reserves. There may be other things we can look at. So okay. So all in favor now of those motions? Somebody like to move the motions as amended? Councillor Corral, Councillor Ludwig. Further discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Reports, administration reports. Chief Administrative Officer, looks like you got 2 minutes. Talk about.
Okay, well, see if I can get it done in 2 minutes. Thank you for the opportunity, and basically I'll provide some brief overview of activities during the recent weeks. I continue to have weekly calls with my fellow CAOs of the SCRD and the District of Sechelt on emerging issues of mutual concern. We'll also be including the new Sechelt Dunedin Government District Administrator, who I understand has been retained. So we invite him or her to those meetings. We also carry on with our weekly manager meetings. We report on ongoing departmental issues as well as workplace safety concerns that are shared with staff. I also have had discussions with Manny on a few occasions, both to check in on his health as well as to discuss background and his perspective on some of the key issues that he was dealing with that the staff is now doing on his behalf. The fellow CAOs, myself also had a meeting with SCREDO, the Sunshine Coast Regional Economic Development Organization, Colin Stansfield, Executive Director. SCREDO has been quite busy with doing various reports on behalf of the member municipalities and SCRD, and we've requested that he do a presentation in the fall to the local government councils and board, and he will do so. So I think you'll find his presentations are very interesting. There's been a lot of work done by that organization in recent months. As been reported, we had some cooling centers, and including Mayor Beamish working with Gibsons here with the water stations. We also had consultation with our member municipalities and the SCRD. It wasn't a full-on emergency operations center, EOC, but it was a quasi-EOC organized with provincial health, looking at what kind of facilities could be provided for the general public on a very short-term and basis. Immediate needs, we looked at areas that could have air conditioning as well as staff with trained CPR. So we turned our drinking fountains back on in Gibsons, for example, that Seashell had done previously because of COVID. We got approved from health to do so. We had some civic facilities at the GAC and Seashell that were open to the public to avail themselves of a cool place to be and some drinking water with, again, trained staff for anyone that had any heat issues. We also had an emergency program meeting on June 30th, and the EOC Director, Jerry Parker of the SCRD, made an announcement in concert with the province that the actual COVID state of emergency was officially lifted on 4 p.m. on July 2nd. And it was actually, I believe, the longest state of emergency in British Columbia history. Also continue to work on council's endorsed committee for the Holland Lands and the Cultural Corner. So I've been talking with the library and Councillor Ladwick on setting up the meeting and notifying the participants and setting an agenda for that in the weeks ahead. Also worked with the SCRD and Seashell and council and our staff on coordinating UBCM meetings. And they had a deadline of June 30th for the UBCM meetings September 17th, I believe, that week. Also reporting on the tax season. As you may know, the tax deadline was just finished, and Noni and Lorraine and her team had a number of challenges with the new homeowner grant program and communications with the general public, but everything went smoothly, and very proud of the team for the job well done. And also on a emerging matter, council's discussed this as well tonight. Been discussions with Donna McMahon of the Area of Elphinstone Director, and we're coordinating a meeting with the CAO of SCRD and the respective planners and MODI on how we can integrate our road network plans, particularly Gower Point Road and Reed Road, and working with our respective staffs to look at the road cross sections and how they would tie into each other when our boundaries meet. So probably more than 2 minutes, but thank you again for the opportunity and welcome any questions.
No, thank you for that. Council, does Council have any questions? It's good to get an update. Where are we with the summer? What's it looking like here, staff-wise and things?
Well, we've got a number of staff that are off now and are looking at August as well, but we're looking at the managers and directors having the opportunity to have the coverage when one's away, one doesn't take holidays and so on. So they've been very prudent with their time, respecting council meetings as well. So August, with the council meetings not occurring, the senior staff is taking advantage of that opportunity to also have their vacation.
Good. Good, excellent. Okay, well, thank you very much for that. And go on next on the agenda, Director of Planning, Community Amenities Contribution Policy and Consultation Strategy.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just going to share my screen. I have a little presentation. Let's see. Can you see that?
Yes, looks good.
All right. Okay. So on June 1st, we brought the CAC policy to the committee of the whole. So it was the consultants at Urban Systems and staff presented it. And there was no motion passed at that time, but there was a lot of discussion, and the committee, the minutes taken, asked for a report back on an updated CAC policy, which differentiates the rates between a townhouse and an apartment use, applies a premium to view properties, and provides an incentive for entry-level housing options. So this report reports back on those 3 items, and then as well to report back on with consultation recommendations for the purpose of seeking public input on amenity options for the basket of goods approach and percentage allocations for the CAC and affordable housing reserve funds. So in terms of those 3 items, the differentiating rates, applying a premium, and incentives for entry-level housing, the rates were pretty straightforward and easy to differentiate based on the pro forma calculations that they did. So initially, the consultants just grouped duplex, townhouse, 3-family dwelling, apartment use, and live work all into one and put it at $4,000 per unit. By breaking it up, apartments were just a little bit less. So now it's broken up with a $3,000 per unit for an apartment or live work, and then the duplex, townhouse, and 3-family dwelling would be $4,000 per unit. In terms of applying a premium to view properties, the only way to capture the value of a higher end product is to take a negotiated approach for each individual development. So these flat target rates do not provide this flexibility, but instead they provide a clear, consistent approach, which was the key takeaway from the staff and council workshop. So in terms of incentivizing entry-level housing options, the CAC policy is not the right tool for incentivizing development. The CAC policy is triggered at rezoning stage. So the town receives about 2 to 4 rezoning applications a year, and the impact on housing affordability through these rezonings are negligible. So they're very minor. So the market, essentially, the consultants recommended that the market will not deliver affordable housing without some type of government intervention, so local government support or provincial and federal grants. So the best way to incentivize entry-level housing options would be to implement recommendations in the housing strategy. And some of these recommendations include streamlining application processing times, such as jumping the line, reducing fees, so those could be application fees, DCCs, sewer, garbage. How the town reduces those fees is another conversation. Incentivizing secondary suites and garden suites, lock-off units, and possibly more formal contributions to the Affordable Housing Reserve Fund, which could reduce these application fees. So those are the other ways to incentivize entry-level housing, but the CAC policy is essentially the wrong tool for that. So CACs and development financing are technical and complex processes that require professional expertise and analysis in land economics, and this was provided by the Urban Systems consultants. As part of their process to develop the policy, they interviewed and surveyed stakeholders as well, because those would be the stakeholders, the developers that would be directly impacted by the policy and would have to contribute those funds. So in terms of the the consultation, staff are recommending launching a community survey, which would be very simple. It would be 2 questions, and that would help council understand community priorities on amenity options, and then the percentage allocations for the CAC and Affordable Housing Reserve funds. So the next 2 slides just go through the 2 questions for council to consider to find out if this is what you're looking for. Question 1 would address the amenity priorities. So it says, council would like to understand which of these amenities are most important to the community. Please organize the amenities listed below from highest priority to lowest priority, with 1 being the most important to you and 10 being the least important to you. So these are 10 amenities that anyone could prioritize. And then there is an open comment box at the bottom where they could add additional amenities or add some comments. So the list here is upgrading civic facilities, improving the public plaza at the old Visitor Information Center in Gibsons Landing, pedestrian infrastructure improvements, cycling infrastructure improvements, improvements to recreation facilities such as public beach facility improvements, arts and culture. So this could include Sea Cavalcade, Jazz Festival, signage or art to acknowledge the town's location on the territory of the Squamish Nation, heritage conservation, environmental enhancements, public art, and parkland improvements. So that's 1 question. The next question would be to address the percentage allocation. So how much money should go into each of the reserve funds? So this one says cash contributions collected from developers may be placed in 2 reserve funds. 1 is a community amenity contribution reserve fund, which is used to pay for public amenities listed in question 1. And the other is the Affordable Housing Reserve Fund, which is used to help support the creation of affordable housing in Gibsons. What percentage of the cash contributions do you think should be placed in the CAC Reserve Fund? Please indicate by sliding the slider below. So those are the 2 questions. Hopefully they can guide council or assist council in making the decision. The staff recommendation on the report is to receive the report, to launch the survey, and to report back to council with the results of the survey. So the intention would be to launch the survey for 2 weeks over the August break and then report back in September. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Plant. The only thing I'd like to add to that list is dog off leash park somewhere. So see what the feeling is, whether that's a park amenity improvement or a park improvement, whatever. So, but yeah.
Okay, we can do that.
You and I talked earlier today about how these community amenity funds, fees, relate to some of the projects we've had. Did you get a chance to look at any of that?
I did. It's a tricky one to compare. So basically the question is, how does the policy compare to what we've had in the past? And we've had such a variety of contributions, from like in-kind contributions to, like, for example, connecting trail networks on some properties. We've had some developers improve sidewalks across the road. We've had park design concepts contributed. We've had land given up for stormwater retention, and we've had varying degrees of monetary contributions for affordable housing. So when looking at what we've received and how it compares to the policy, I can't say that this policy is stronger than our negotiated approaches in the past, because we haven't put a value on what those negotiated approaches are worth. But ultimately, the way to get the strongest negotiation would be to do a negotiated approach on a case-by-case basis with every single rezoning application. And that's how we would know that we would never leave money on the table. With a set rate like this, or a targeted rate, what it does is basically has a transparent process, a simple process that is fair based on the pro forma calculations that the developers did in this point in time. So.
Thank you. I know it's complicated. Does this new process, though, that we're doing, where we're looking at a kind of a fixed rate according to a schedule, preclude us from negotiating other amenities? You know, I'm going to say, for example,
No.
the project that is being done on Park Road at the present time, the townhouses.
Mhm.
How many townhouses there are on that project? But on our scale, the townhouses would be $4,000 each.
Are you talking about the Maplewood development on Park Road?
Yeah.
So what we would do is look at what the base density was before they rezoned. So I wasn't here for that rezoning, but it was probably like a R3 zone, so maybe a duplex zoning. So they would get credit for the existing zone, and then any bump up in density in units, they would have to pay, I think it was $4,000 per additional unit. So for 28 units, and then I'd have to do the calculation, but it would be a contribution at that point. If they wanted to reduce that contribution, they could say, well, we're gonna have 4 units as rental units, and so then the monetary contribution would come down by that much. Or they could say, well, we're going to do 4 rental units and we're going to improve the sidewalk across the street, and then they'd have to put a value on that, and then that would get deducted as well. So there is room for broadening the negotiation, but what this does is it sets a target rate so developers can calculate up front how much it's going to cost to develop in the town of Gibsons.
And that's important for developers, but I appreciate there's certain flexibility. I mean, that project, there was a financial contribution, as you say, there was a sidewalk, and there was a section of trail built, as I recall, on that project, and of course, everything else that goes with that project. But yeah, so it's just something to think about, Council. I don't want to kind of dismiss opportunities that we have had in the past that we may not necessarily see because we have a schedule. I'd like to make sure that we have the ability, even with a schedule, to negotiate over and above that. So those are my questions. Councilor DeDrad.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, it's interesting because I had the impression that the reason we were going through a more established CACs is because of the difficulty that staff encounter in the negotiation process. Somehow I feel almost like, I feel like that if we have the set CAC, we're gonna lose, right? Because the amounts for each apartment doesn't seem too much. So, but the message that I got initially was that this was a burden for staff, and staff would prefer to have something like established. But I feel right now that perhaps, I'm not sure, but it doesn't seem like big gain in a way, right? That somehow we are providing a rezoning, but doesn't feel that we are getting too much. One clarification, and I'm sorry, I think I'm a little bit confused with the land lift. So when we rezone, we provide a land lift, obviously. There is a land lift, sorry. So do we still calculate the land lift? And on top, we also add the value per, for example, if it's in a matter of apartment building, for each apartment, or it would be just the 3,000 per unit?
Yeah, so the land lift, basically this policy is designed around the town receiving 50% of that land lift. So that's how the consultants came to those numbers. They did 12 different scenarios in an upzoning process and came to those numbers. In a negotiated approach, we would there would be a third-party consultant would do an assessment of the land lift, and then the town would get 50% of that land lift. So with the set rates, with the target rates, they're set. So somebody wants to rezone, they're in a single family zone and they want to put in 4 apartments. They would have to pay for those 3 extra apartments, basically. So it would be that, and then and the contribution would be 9,000 about. And that's based on a 50% land lift, based on the pro formas that were calculated by the consultant. So it's the cost of development was included in their pro forma calculations. So all the costs, so the land, the development permit process, the time it takes, architectural drawings, any environmental assessments required, DCCs, all that stuff was included, as well as the management fees and a contingency, I think, is in there as well. In the previous staff report, there's a whole table and it shows all the different calculations and everything that was included, the hard and soft costs into this calculation. But it was a lot of number crunching, and it was difficult because there's, like, for example, Marine Drive and Gibsons. There's tiny little properties. They all need flood exemptions. They're all in geotech and environmental areas. There's a height limitation. There's access limitations. There's all these limitations, but they're allowed a certain amount under zoning. So if they upzone, they've got to get all those approvals, which take time and cost a lot of money. So that's probably, like, all those things came into consideration when the consultants came up with those numbers.
Councillor Lumley, then Councillor Ladwig, then Councillor Kroll.
All right, thanks for the report coming back. I actually like the established, I like it being established only for the developer coming in, kind of knowing the ground rules, and for staff, like, it's a lot less work. And if somebody wants to renegotiate some of these things, then, you know, the planning department can bring it before council. I think that's, like, the right way, the order of operations. I had a couple questions. As far as the rental units, I would like to see, like, that the rent, like, if that's one of the options for a developer, I'd like to see those rental units. If the developer maintains ownership or of the property or something, I would like to see, like, somewhere in our CAC is that these rental units, to make them affordable rental units, are administered through the Affordable Housing Society. They don't have to own them, but I'd like to see them administered through there so that they can guarantee that people that meet the qualifications of affordable housing, reductions in rent based on income, all those factors are met. I think that would be one thing I would add. And then the other one, and I probably mentioned this before, and we just went through this in the committee, the whole meeting. I mean, the consultation with the community, first of all, I think August is probably the worst month because people are on vacation. It's just like it's not going to bring the results you might want to see. But I mean, and I don't know what we can do, but I mean, there's been so many consultations lately that, you know, I look at the numbers, like today, like 37 people with comments regarding, you know, creating a 1-lane road with, like, potential stoplights and bike lanes. 37 people, right? So that's less than 1% of our population commenting on a pretty major, like, change to, like, traffic and so on and so forth. So I just don't know what we can do to increase engagement, or if there's a formula that, like, we could at least, you know, I mean, it just frustrates me. I know it's nobody's fault, but it just frustrates me that we can't hear from more people and get more information. I just don't know what we can do. So anyway, lots of times, well, you've done these before, Leslie Ann, where you know, it's like the short-term rentals. Like you put that out to the public and all you hear back from are people that own short-term rentals, right? So it's just like, I don't know how we get better community engagement, but I would like to see that. So I don't know what we can do, but it's frustrating, but thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ladwig.
I just want to say thank you. I really appreciate you going out and talking to the community and figuring out that whole concept around whether or not view homes could be, you know, charged more versus not. And it's a little too bad that they can't, but at least we looked into it and tried. I agree with Councillor Lumley that having a fixed cost for developers to plan around is really important. My only other comment is, and this is more of a comment for our CIO, I would love it if we took this approach somehow, the approach that the planning department is taking with establishing fixed costs. I would love it if somehow the engineering department could do the same thing for the costs that they require for their service agreements, because that's very confusing for a lot of developers and people trying to subdivide a lot, trying to figure out what all their service, you know, all the different service requirements that an individual has to fulfill. And if the town could simply tell a developer or an individual that you have to do X, Y, and Z, and this is the cost, then everybody, it speeds up the process, makes it far less onerous for the engineering department, and hopefully makes these things run more smoothly. So just putting that comment out there.
Thank you. Councillor Corral.
Thank you, Mayor Beamish, and thank you very much for the report. And, you know, I certainly agree with what Councillor Lumley was saying. And I also have reservation about the time of the public engagement. And the other thing that sort of concerned me a bit was the slide for amenities versus affordable housing, because a lot of the people who need affordable housing are probably not going to be responding to this survey. So the people that are responding are going to want amenity contributions. So I'm a little concerned about that slide and the data we'll get back from that. The other thing in your report on 4.1.2, the target rates, the word apartment. And I have, now when you say apartment, you're saying a residential unit in a condominium complex, is that correct? Versus something that I can rent, an apartment.
So the apartment, we use the definition in our zoning bylaw, and it's essentially more than 3 units, I think it is. So what we would do is, let's see, I can't even find it. It means the residential use of part or all of a building comprised of 3 or more dwelling units, but does not include townhouses or 3-family dwellings. So it's not tied to the tenure at all. It's just the use of land. So it's essentially the building with more than 3 units.
If I may be devil's advocate for a moment. So I take over a residential property on South Fletcher, was site of a single family. Actually, no, it was a vacant lot. And so it didn't have previous existing. I build 4 condominiums on that property. So that means I would just pay $3,000 per unit.
It could be less than that because you would have credit for the existing lot.
Okay, and these are units that are currently listed at $1.2 million each.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I come along that same single lot and I'm creating affordable rental housing, and I put in 16 units on the same lot. I'm going to pay $3,000 per unit.
No. So because you are putting in affordable rental housing, if it's purpose built, it's basically exempt from the CACs. So that there's that new provision in the policy.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I do still question that someone can build something and sell it for $1.3 million and they're only paying $3,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I don't know if it's possible that if there's a projected retail sale of an amenity of a product, that that scale slides up.
No, so that would be more of a negotiated approach because we'd be looking at we would have to look at that would be a case by case consideration.
Okay.
So previously we had townhouses and apartments grouped together at 4,000 per unit. But there was a request to differentiate the uses. So that brought the apartment down a little bit to 3,000 instead of 4,000. Because townhouses are worth more, I guess.
It is possible though to go
Not
to,
necessarily. If the townhouse is built, you know, in the back corner of the village where there's no view, there's no, you're looking at another townhouse and you're looking across at another townhouse, as opposed to a terrace condominium complex, but I'll leave it at this, just expressing my concern.
So under section 4.14, it speaks to the negotiated approach. So that would be triggered where the density exceeds what's permitted in the OCP. So if we're going to do an OCP amendment for a project, so for example, Stonehurst was one that we were talking about that has come in, that would be a negotiated approach. Where a subdivision of more than 10 lots is being proposed. So when Upper Gibsons, the Upper Gibsons neighborhood develops, that would presumably have more than 10 lots. So then that would trigger the negotiated approach. Where a complex project, such as a phase development, is being proposed, or where an applicant wishes to undertake their own economic assessment at their own expense. So they might look at those numbers and go, that's too much, that's not fair. We want to do our own assessment and renegotiate. And then that negotiated approach would be where the town takes 50% of the increase in land value.
Okay, so we do have some snares and snags that we can catch things on. Great.
Yeah.
well, I'm concerned with the time frame of the consultation, but I'm also concerned that if we don't move this forward, development will continue to occur. And we are still in that kind of a limbo area. And I just wonder if there's a way to try to accomplish the consultation prior to September and still kind of broaden it somehow. And I don't know how to suggest doing that, but this seems to be a fairly easy type of online consultation we're doing. That the numbers should roll up fairly quickly. There's that. So maybe extend it to a 3-week period, or and including the last week of July and 2 weeks in August, something like that.
Yeah, we could do that. I mean, it's really, the question is more around the decision on section 4.1.1 of the policy. So council could just come up with a number and change it later. Or you could ask the community and say, what do you think? And you'll get responses from people who are interested. It's hard to say how people will feel about it. But it's a matter of allocating where the funds go when we receive them. And then the priority and for the question 1 on the survey is more just to give council an idea of what the priorities are in the community. But again, it's so hard to reach out to people. Everybody is doing surveys now, especially with COVID, and it's the only way really that people are reaching out. So people could be tired of surveys, just done with them.
We could also improve the policy with not having that allocated at all, and that allocation would become later by council resolution.
Yeah, I guess it could be allocated at time of rezoning. Yeah.
I'm just thinking that if there are applications pending or things like that come in, whether there's any advantage to moving quicker or we're simply under the existing policy. Councilor Didrad?
Yeah, sorry, I'm struggling with, I'm kind of disappointed because when I start reading about land lift, and it was usually about 50 or 75% of the value of the land. So when you give a privilege to someone to resign, and the person, right, is gonna do, way more density. So there's a sacrifice that the community or whatever, we have to get something back, because also you're bringing a number of people. So you need to have the development of this kind of amenities for the public. So it's not even cash for the town. It's something to give back to the public. And I saw many calculations and the amount, and I know the last one that I saw, I don't have here in front of me, but I remember they take into account all the expenses, but still there's a big amount. I'm very disappointed because it doesn't, with all these calculations that urban system came up, and I'm sure that they took into consideration, but I don't think it's like Councilor Corral was saying. So you give a big lift, you give someone a lift, they can increase density, but they pay what, $9,000? What kind of amenity are we gonna get with $9,000? It just doesn't make sense to me. I almost don't like this policy. I'd rather do and I understand that from the point of view of the developer, it's a good thing. I get that, but I don't understand the reason we get a contribution is to give back to the community, because we now have more people using amenities. I don't know how we're going to equate this, really.
Councilor Ludwig? You got
I just have to say, you can't forget about all the other expenses that the developer is putting out there. You're looking at one fee. That's it. There's all the other fees that the developer is paying that Director of Planning just outlined, and I'm sure she missed a few in her list.
No, I understand.
So, like, for every lot that's created, they're putting out, I don't know what, thousands more, 40,000 more. I mean, there's a lot more going into it.
I understand the expenses, but the bottom line is, at the end of the day, once we have the town of Gibsons fully dense, we're not going to have enough amenities, because we won't have collected enough money, because the purpose of community amenity, read about it, the purpose of a community amenity, it's exactly for the density, the extra density. And you have to put back this to the public. And I don't know, I fear that, I don't know, I'm disappointed, because before it was a negotiated approach, at least we felt that we gained something, and now are we going to get $9,000, even $40,000? I understand from the point of view of the developer, but we are not getting what we are, yeah, and divide for affordable housing, 10 years, we might make $200,000, or if.
Yeah. It all depends upon how much development occurs and the value of that. But yeah. But that being said, it's up to the developers to pay an awful lot of upfront money. DCCs are a huge cost, and just the cost of land are huge costs, and cost of construction. At the end of the day, I don't think the developer makes that $1 million per unit that Councilor Crowe was referring to. That's not their profit. That's the money that they might sell for. But after they paid all the associated costs, their profit is somewhere in that 10 to 12%. I understand. It does seem like there's a lot of money out there, and they were leaving money on the table. Councilor Stats.
So another thing that council could discuss or might want to discuss is whether 50% is what you want to see. So some municipalities take 25% because they want to encourage more development, say. Other municipalities would take 75%, which is quite a lot to take. So the consultants and staff talked about it, and we recommend taking a 50%. But, you could change that number a little bit, increase it, and see how that plays out. I mean, the intention isn't to it's not intended to make development difficult in Gibsons and send it away. So they all go to, like, development goes to the SCRD&C shelter or somewhere else. It's intended to be fair. So these are the numbers that are fair. And it doesn't seem like a lot, but the cost of development on the Sunshine Coast is very high. And that's where these numbers have come from. I mean, if you compare these rates with other municipalities, you'll find that they're quite high.
Director, does the SCRD collect community amenity contributions?
I'm not sure. They have a policy. They do negotiate. I mean, when I was there, we talked about it, but we didn't have a lot of rezoning applications that would trigger it. But I don't recall. I know the District of Sechelt does on a negotiated approach. So they were basically doing what we did. And they want to work on a policy. So I don't know how far they've gotten with it though.
Okay, well, I mean, it's always going to be an interesting discussion, but it's a policy, and a policy can change with a resolution. So if we see that it's not working, we can bring it back and we can amend it, and then that's part of the trigger. So, Councillor Corral, you want to add something?
Yeah, I was just going to move the recommendation, and but the only caveat I would put on it is that the survey period be expanded just to try and capture a broader audience if that's possible.
Yeah, the resolution doesn't include a survey period, but if we just need to give that direction to staff, see if we can add some more links to the survey to capture people. Yeah, Councillor Ledwig.
Sorry, just one last wrench. Is it possible to have a varied approach where it's if it is, say, in the view area, that becomes a negotiated rate versus not?
So I guess the question is what is a view area, and how do you define that?
The view protection area, if it's within the view protection area.
Yeah, like, is it possible to have a slightly different approach to depending on where the development is taking place?
Yeah, absolutely. So you could come up with a boundary and say within this area, you would have to negotiate. But it's like the view protection area boundary, I wouldn't recommend going with that because a lot of the higher density along, say, School Road, where you could capture views, is outside the view protection area.
So could we draw our own CAC boundary for negotiated CACs?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're like, I just want to.
Yeah, you could. I mean, you could make it as complex as you want. So again, going back to that council workshop, the idea or the key takeaway was a simple policy that was transparent. So this is what we have, a very simple policy, but we can always make it more complex.
Okay, I'll leave it at that.
It is, as I said, it's a policy. We can bring it back and we can instruct staff to continue working on elements of it. Right now, we're not actually adopting this policy changes in these resolutions. We're directing staff to launch a survey so that we're still 2 months away from actually adopting this as a policy, so that we're under the current regime of CACs, which still has served us well in a lot of cases. So we will see this again in September with the results of the survey. And if you think of anything else, please. So that being said, Councillor Corral has moved the resolutions. Somebody second them. Councillor Lumley second. For the discussion, all in favor? Thank you very much. And thank you, Director of Planning. And we don't want to make everything as difficult as we're making everything. It's just that we enjoy each other's conversations, and conversation is good. So it makes for better policy. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. You're welcome. No problem.
Director of Corporate Services, COVID update.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Beamish. I just want to give you a brief update on what the entering into phase 3 means to staff here at the office and what may be coming with regard to council meetings in the future. So as you all know, we've entered phase 3 based on declining COVID-19 case counts and increasing vaccination rates in people over 18 and declining hospitalizations and mortality rates. And if that continues, we should enter phase 4 in early September. So the big thing is that everyone feels a little differently about the shift into phase 3. Not everyone's excited about being able to have people crowded close together again, the social distancing changes, changes in wearing masks. And so the important message is to be considerate that some people are taking a little longer than others to adjust to going back to former ways of socializing or conducting ourselves in the workplace. And so it's going to be a little slow moving, even though we could move a little faster. Not everyone wants to. So the big thing is get vaccinated. Hopefully everyone here has had a chance to, but not everyone has gotten their second vaccine. I myself am still waiting. I have my appointment, but I haven't gotten it yet. In the meantime, respect personal space still, continue following guidelines. If you're sick, stay home. There are still variants out there. There are still people getting sick. And continue with things like washing your hands. And remember that it's always, there's a little more freedom when you're outside than when you're inside. And the recommendation is that we continue to keep wearing our masks until we are fully vaccinated. So if you aren't fully vaccinated, you've only had the first shot, you may wish to keep wearing your mask. It's not mandatory, it is just a recommendation. And that's especially in indoor public spaces and for people 12 years and older if you haven't had your second shot. So that's pretty much what we're doing here at the office right now, is respecting that space because not everyone in the office has had their second shot. And we're operating under the existing guidelines as we gradually return to work. So for offices and workplaces, it is a gradual and continued return to the workplace. Staff have conducted a survey, and we will be meeting this week to go over the results of our survey of our coworkers to see what working remotely and the return to work means to them, how they feel about it, what changes, what's worked well, what hasn't, and we'll be talking about that in the coming weeks. So we will now be transitioning as required from a COVID-19 safety plan to a communicable disease plan. So that's going to look a little different. So a communicable disease prevention. A communicable disease is an illness caused by an infectious agent or its toxic product that can be transmitted in a workplace from one person to another. Examples of communicable disease that may circulate in a workplace include COVID-19, norovirus, and seasonal influenza. So there's now a communicable disease prevention guide for employers that's just come out from WorkSafe BC in the last week, maybe the last 2 weeks, that gives us a 4-step process to develop a communicable disease plan, and our HR manager is working on that. The plan does not need to be written, posted, or approved by WorkSafe BC, but the plan may be supported by our policies, signage, or other materials within our workplace regarding the level of risk. So there will be things like first educating ourselves about communicable disease, and then implementing measures such as policies regarding support staff who may have symptoms, continuing to provide hand hygiene facilities with appropriate supplies and signage to remind workers to wash their hands, cover coughs and sneezes, continue with the clean environment through routine cleaning, and make sure the building ventilation is adequate and properly maintained, and to support our employees in receiving their vaccinations. You may have seen the letter that came out on July 2nd from the province, from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs. And the most significant part is that Step 3 of the restart plan and the end of the state of emergency will not impact how local governments have been conducting meetings or public hearings in the short term. M192, the order that gave authority as needed to adapt provincial health officer orders and local circumstances for meetings and public hearings, that remains in effect until September 28th, 2021, for 90 days after the end of the state of emergency. Before M192 expires in September, local governments will want to proactively consider the new permanent authorities that are recently enacted through amendments to the local government legislation. That is Bill 10. So that authorizes us to hold regular committee meetings and public hearings electronically. Local governments who choose to use the new electronic meeting authorities can amend their procedure bylaws once the legislation is in force, which is 90 days after the end of the state of emergency, which is September 28, 2021. To support local governments with these changes, guidance will be coming, supposedly now or in the very near future, in early July, to provide information about the new electronic meeting authorities, questions to consider, and procedure bylaws best practices for electronic meetings. The authority of M192 under the COVID-related Measures Act to adopt certain municipal financial bylaws in a single meeting, where we were able to pass a bylaw through in one single meeting, that expires on July 10th. So very soon. After that date, municipal councils will be required to adopt their bylaws over 2 meetings in accordance with Section 135 of the Community Charter, as we did before. So one of the things that the big thing with Bill 10 is that it changes for electronic meetings so that we can continue to hold meetings electronically in the future in ways that we weren't able to before. Our council chambers only hold 6 people under the current occupancy limits. Even if we were comfortable with people crowding in a little tighter, or a little closer together, it doesn't hold very many people. And not everyone will be comfortable sitting in council chambers like they were before. So staff would like to see a hybrid of on-site meetings together with the ability to attend electronically, either council members or members of the public. And we've noticed that a lot of people prefer attending electronically. We've had better turnout with some of our meetings because of that additional ability to attend electronically than when everyone was required to be here on site. What's going to be required for us is a look at the IT equipment that is available in council chambers. I have not had the privilege of being through one of your meetings when it ran normally on site in council chambers. So we have had the IT consultants take a look at it together with our admin assistant, Tracy. And Tracy and I are going to visit some of our neighboring communities for whom this has been their ordinary way of doing council meeting business all along. For many of them, this isn't a change. They've always had both, live broadcast or ability to watch as things are live streamed. Whereas that's going to be something new, I believe, for Gibsons. So we will be taking a little road trip and visiting Seashell and SCRD and maybe another place, or even North Van perhaps, or something, and take a look at how they do it and what changes need to be made. So with regard to your COVID funding, we may be coming back with an ask once we know what kind of equipment we need in order to accommodate the new normal when we start. And it looks like it will be September for us, because we won't have that ready in time before you start your holidays in August and your break from meetings. So we'll come back to you with another report once we have a better idea of what that looks like. But Bill 10 is out, and you can take a look at that and what the electronic meeting allows. It also provides some clauses for revenue anticipation borrowing, borrowing from reserve funds, and for elections and special circumstances, which all will be a little different going forward than they were before. You can take a look at Bill 10. I have a copy here if you want one. I can email it to you. or you can just pull it up in your correspondence packages. There's a link, I believe, in the letter that came to you. So does anyone have questions for me about what that might look like?
Thank you. I think you're very thorough on that. I would like, sorry, Councilor DeAndrade will, but I would like to see us have the kind of technology that does allow us to have both people present and people online, and that does exist. I think even the public market is acquiring that for their board meetings. So that right now we have a kind of a static video presentation pickup, but I think I'd like to have it a little bit more active and be able to move around. So, Councilor DeAndrade, you're.
Thank you. I was going to ask this question because what I'm thinking is anyone, I mean, before many times you were not feeling great and you come to the council meeting anyways because, it was just a flu or something and allergy. But now I think if anyone feels any symptom, you probably want to quarantine for 14 days. So, but you address the mixed model, yes.
Good. Okay, thank you very much for that. We'll be interested to talk in September and see how things are rolling out for that first meeting in September. So, thank you. Going on now to council reports. We have a report from Councilor DeAndrade on the Tree Bylaw Select Committee meeting.
Mayor, just a clarification, is just on the tree meeting or do you do the, can I do the rest of the reporting too?
Well, you can do the rest of the reporting, but I'm just looking at, we're gonna have to have a resolution to extend time anyway. So
yeah. It will be quick. Okay, Tree Bylaw Committee. Yeah, we had a very good start before the meeting took place. We exchanged a lot of information with each other, ideas, questions. We came up even with a long document with many points we would like to address. We introduced ourselves. So to speed up process when we met. So this was really positive. It feels like we already knew each other when we had our first meeting. It was really good. Nevertheless, we didn't have a representation from the Squamish Nation. And the committee felt that without them at the table, we wouldn't like to start the meeting. The window, the town of Gibsons made an invitation on June 7 and the meeting was on June 18. So the committee felt that there was not enough time for them to respond. Sometimes they are slowing in their response. And they felt that all the decisions, the discussions will revolve around values. And if we didn't have the Squamish representative at the table, this could completely change where our recommendations would go. So we are still hoping to hear from them soon. The committee is really eager to start. I was hoping that the corporate officer today had some news, but I don't think we have. But I look forward to hearing from them. And if they come forward saying that they will not be able to, or for whatever reason, to participate, perhaps we can even ask some questions prior to that, and then we will go ahead. But the committee doesn't want to go ahead without hearing from them first.
Councilor, I don't think I would wait. The Squamish Nation is just entering their election period now, and their elections are being held in September. And there's going to be a lot of activity around election. And even the regional district with the Seashell Nation, we very seldom see them attend meetings. So I think that I think if you wait, you're almost better off to run things past them in some sense and send them. Councillor we've been dealing with over there, Chris Lewis, I understand is not running for re-election. So that they're reducing their council from 16 to 8 people. So there's going to be quite a change. So they're going to be very focused on election activity and things for the next period of time. So appointing people to committees might not be their high priority right now.
Yeah, I think, Mayor, the committee, there are many, there are participants, committee members that work directly with First Nations, and especially with the sensitivity of the moment we are going through there, they feel perhaps the best approach is that our corporate officer contact them again and just make sure that we get a response such as we won't be able to participate or something, hopefully. But and okay, maybe I'll speak with the corporate officer after how we can approach that if the committee, if council is comfortable with this.
Yeah, or CAO could go to CAO of the Squamish Nation.
Yeah, yes, sorry. Okay, so I'll keep in touch with them because right now I felt the committee was really sensitive in waiting to hear from them. Okay, so my next report so this was June 18. On June 25th, I participated on the Ocean Watch Action Committee, and very interesting. So they are planning local governments, well, they would like local governments to act on best practice for marine dock management, and they would come up with a workshop for that. I'll let know if any, I believe people can participate, perhaps Councilor Crow would like to, or any other councilor. Continue plans for workshop on vessels of concern, marine debris and mooring buoys to be held fall winter. Continue to plan a fall workshop that provides opportunities for knowledge sharing among house sound communities and property owners. So that's really cool. It's working on educational level, consider youth strategy for shifting attitudes of property owners and the need to adapt to sea level rise. So they're being really active on this front as well. And continued subcommittee plans for holding a species and habitat research and monitoring workshop to be held in the fall. So there will be lots happening this year. And obviously we still haven't officially heard from the Biosphere Reserve, but I think we will hear very soon. So this is really exciting. And by the way, it will increase tourism and perhaps more cycling. And on June 26, 27 on the weekend, I participated on Stream Keepers training as Chester Creek. It was really 2 intense days of measurements and evaluations. And the assessment of Chester Creek, it was marginal to acceptable. This was obviously just one weekend to really come up with official evaluation. You have to do in different periods of the year, but it was interesting to see how the creek is. So it's not awesome, it's not too bad. Someone there. So that's my report.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And you did manage to slip cycling in there, even though Councillor Lumley had banned it. So thank you.
Sorry, Cal.
Councillor Kroll.
Yes, it'll help if I unmute. Thank you, Mayor Beamish. On the 21st of June, I attended the Sunshine Coast Housing Action Table. Now, interesting evening. There were 3 meetings that night. There was the Housing Action Table meeting. There was the public hearing on the different road treatments. And there was another fairly significant hearing. So, Zoom meetings are wonderful, but they all get piled on top of one another. So the Housing Action Table, they reviewed their terms of reference, and then there was reports from the town of Gibsons, the Sunshine Coast Regional District, and the District of Sechelt as to what initiatives are happening within the communities to try and incentivize housing. And I think most of the people here are familiar with the reports we've received and what we're doing. One of the things that became apparent was everyone needs to be on the same page with regard to STRs. The regional district so far is the only body that has adopted one. So that was emphasized as something that we need to get together and make sure everyone's on the same page with. Rental incentives. The other thing was working as a community, like very much Team Sunshine Coast, rather than turning it into sort of a game of survivor to get funding for projects, that we work as Team Sunshine Coast and look at areas where we can work together. Gibsons has a need, rather than Sechelt screaming, we need the funding, that it's sort of a collaborative look at where money is directed, and that we work collaboratively in applying for the funding. And to that end, obviously different areas have advantages with available land and one thing and another. There was some discussion in breakout rooms. You know, it's difficult because, you know, this group was started earlier in the year, and here we are almost, you know, halfway through the year, and it's still very much in its infancy. Colin Stannisfield is very heavily involved in, you know, he is an amazing driving force with respect to this group moving forward. So I think now that the terms of reference are in place and some ground rules have been set, that, you know, it's going to move forward. Just a couple, should I follow up with just the rest of my report?
Yep.
So that was the 21st. On the 23rd, I attended a thing so it was an info session on rental affordability, which there was a lot of good information. And I've reached out to staff for some statistics relative to that we can apply to our community that will help maybe people see things in a little better light in decision making. So I'm looking forward to that continuing. On the 30th, I attended the a First Nations event on just, and this was through the CAT committee, on just the impact of, you know, different things that have been happening, the opioid crisis, the mental health issues, and different things that are happening in our community and also in First Nations communities. And, you know, that we need to work together. Sometimes it's difficult. There's a lot of other wounds that individuals are dealing with that sometimes makes it a little more difficult to deal with. But one of the sort of bylines of the discussion was get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because there are a lot of issues that need to be dealt with, and they're not comfortable issues to deal with. And we need to appreciate the different lenses with which people look at things. On the 24th, I attended a climate caucus, small and rural communities in climate crisis. Again, the Climate Action Committee is a really great group, a lot of resources there. Then on the Canada Day, may I steal your thunder, Mayor Beamish?
Go ahead.
We attended the walk with the First Nations in Seashelt. I've got a file of photographs I'll share with you. It was an incredibly moving event. It was a little, you know, with reference to the corporate officer's comments. You know, there were a lot of people not wearing masks. There was a huge mass of people. I shudder to think if there may be some fallout from it. I certainly hope not, but it was unbelievably attended. People were still streaming onto the Seawalk as the first people reached, what is it? Snake. Sorry.
Take
Yep.
it.
Anyway, it was just a solid sea of orange. And I think, I actually think a lot of the residents within the Squamish Nation were quite overwhelmed by the attendance that it received. On the 5th, I attended a Climate Ready BC, Climate Preparedness and Adaptation Strategy for a Clean BC. There's a lot of, and then there's another climate accountability report. So there's a lot going on, but, and then just a few other things with respect to, you know, fire in the community. One of the things, and I sent you all an email on the volume of water required to put out a fire with an electric vehicle. I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. And the time that it requires first responders to deal with it. So, you know, and particularly in a rural environment like ours, where a fire truck goes out and they've only got so much water and there's not hydrants along the highway. So if there is a problem, these are things that we need to be dealing with the fire commission and just general preparedness. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to ask before we carry on right now for a motion to extend the meeting. And I don't know what everybody's comfortable with. I'd like to get inquiries in. We have a couple more reports to go and then correspondence. So what's everybody comfortable with? 9:15, 9:30, 10 o'clock? 9:15.
9:15.
9:15, okay, I'm good, yeah, goes. Councillor Dindrad for 9:15, Councillor Corral seconds that. All in favor? Thank you. Music in the Landing. We have a proposal, it's in your package, from Mr. Ken Crofton and Peter Hill to reinstate Music in the Landing starting on the 17th of July. They've had meetings with Linda Williams and Verna Chan, who was our prior contractor who's since left the coast. They would like to see it happen. I would like to see it happen. I'm sure council would as well. It's going to be a little bit of a light in the sense it'll be Saturday performances, but we'll look at opportunities for both music groups in the afternoon, more of a street musicians, and then some entertainment in the park. They propose a budget which actually meets our 14,500. Previous budget was around 18,000, and you'll recall there was a request to increase that at that point in time. I would like to see this happen. I don't know how council feels about that. Now that things have opened up, people can get in the park. I would still suggest that some social distancing would be encouraged through the process, but having something there. And the guys have come down with a budget. I talked to Linda Williams about it, and she feels quite comfortable. And she also recommends these fellows as being very good and supportive of the program. I don't know if Peter Hill is actually in our attendees list right now. If council has, no, he's not there, but that's okay. If council wishes to see music, this is our option. If council wishes to go out and look for bids, it's probably sometime in August it's going to happen. So, Councillor Crowell.
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. We did carry over the funding in our budget line for this, and I believe a small portion of those funds was used for the concerts that were done from the Heritage Playhouse.
That was last year. So that
But
this
we carried over the unspent balance, did we not?
14,500 in the budget. There's a new budget, yeah, but 14,500, which I let them know. I mean, there's no use coming up with a budget and saying how much you play games. So, Councillor Lumley.
Yeah, it's actually 13,500 because there's like a mathematical error on the wine garden shows. 500 times 8 equals 4,000, not 5,000.
That's in here, right? Well, I'd like to do the whole 14,000 with them because I did suggest that on BC Day, it'd be nice to have some additional music on BC Day if we could do it. So that would cover off an extra day of music. So that would be good.
Sure. Just on the map.
Good, thank you. What I'd like to do, if council concurs, I've drafted a motion that council approve the proposal received from Kevin Crofton and Peter Hall for Music in the Landing 2021 program, and that council direct the corporate officer to prepare a contract, short-term contract for Music in the Landing 2021 with Mr. Crofton and Mr. Hill to be executed by the CAO and mayor, not to exceed $14,500. If Councillor, somebody would like to move that, Councillor Ladwig, Councillor Crowell seconded. Any further discussion? It'd be great to see something happening. I would like to see it happen next weekend, and I would encourage that if at all possible. But if we can, we do need to have a contract in place. So call the question, all in favor? Thank you very much. And I'm not going to go through a list of things that meetings I attended, but what I will just say is that I really appreciated the response, the immediate response from the Salvation Army and Councillor Crowell in setting up water stations in Gibsons when the extreme weather hit. We needed resources. The Salvation Army had the water resources, the big carboys. We added bottled water up at Gibsons. Heather and I looked after Upper Gibsons. Daryl Pilgrim looked after Lower Gibsons. Councillor Crowell assisted with some additional equipment. And it's just a matter of coming together and getting it done when it needed to be done. We didn't ask permission. We just did it.
All the ice for Lower.
And yes, Smitty's donated all the ice for Lower. That's right. I kept forgetting that, mainly because I was never involved in that. But yeah, all the ice. We did initially get some starter ice from IGA, or sorry, Salvation Army. But in the end, I ended up buying ice and buying bottled water for Upper Gibsons as well, because that seemed to go very well. Cyclists, I saw cyclists pull up and fill their bottles. Every time we were there, the walkers who were going by thanked us for doing that. So really, we needed to do that. I did prepare a 2-page summary report to the CAO for consideration of what we did, just so it was laid out, and a recommendation actually. But I think the best place in an emergency is the mall. It was the coolest place in town. And I think we set up a section of the mall with a water center and volunteers and somebody with some Red Cross skills, and people came in there. That would be a great cooling place, and they would find it and everybody's there. But that will be up to emergency management. Mark, do you want to say something?
Yes, just to reaffirm what you said about that, and there was a task number assigned, so there is costs that are able to be recouped from the province. And in addition, we are going to have a debriefing meeting to find out what worked, what didn't, and what we can do in the future, because this probably won't be the first heat wave we'll encounter.
It was the first, though, and that's why we needed to respond. Councillor Ludwig?
Exactly.
Yeah, I didn't get to give my update earlier. That's fine. We're running it tight on time. Just wanted to say that the library is interested or exploring their potential role in emergency response, and wondering, it brought up a bunch of questions like, where is our emergency facility in town when there is a state of emergency? Like, do we have one? Is the rec center? I'm not really sure. But the fact that the library is starting to question whether or not they could support the community during states of emergency just says to me that maybe we all need to have this conversation.
Yeah, the building next door to town hall.
That's our state of emergency spot.
It will be.
Yeah. Don't touch any exposed wires.
Yeah, and Councillor Lumley, do you have a report? Thanks for the ice. And Councillor Crowell.
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. Just one very quick thing. I wanted to put a shout out to Freedom Diving, Kevin Swoboda and Ben. They've worked in conjunction with Gibsons Rotary, the town of Gibsons, Gibsons Recycling, to get rid of some of the derelict vessels that are in our recreational lease area. So far, they've removed 3 vessels. There's still 3 more that we're waiting permission from the Department of Transport to be able to remove. But everyone's Rotary stepped up, the Gibsons Marine Rescue Society stepped up, Gibsons Recycling provided trucking and bins, and the town of Gibsons offered space if it was needed for the actual breaking up of the boats in the works yard. So it's been a really great collaborative effort by all parties involved.
Thank you. And one last thing from me is we did meet with the Public Art Committee last week. They are putting together a proposal for the Thrive program, which will come forward either next week or the week after, and another art acquisition project, which needs a bit of work, but my minutes of that meeting will be on the agenda next week, so you'll see them. Okay. Moving forward, correspondence. We've received it. Does any council wish to bring anything forward out of correspondence? Councillor Diandrad, thank you.
Yeah, I'm just gonna mention quickly, we got a correspondence from the district, school district 46, and it's about active travel on the Sunshine Coast, and they have 3 recommendations. They'd like strongly to encourage, which is commit to infrastructure improvements and other initiatives to support active travel for all age groups on the coast. Add support for active travel to your strategic and community plans, and join us in advocating to other levels of government, including the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure, for safety improvements and better infrastructure to support active travel. So I think this is very timely. We will have to do, obviously through the SCRD, there will be discussion in regards to Gower Point, and I think that's it. So we are promoting active transportation through tourism. The school district is requesting. So I think council has a lot of obligations to provide very safe travel, active transportation infrastructure.
And of course, we have been involved with the school district and the project with Johan Stroman on active transportation with the Gibsons Elementary School, which is great. It was nice to see his bicycles in Laura Gibson's parked up against our benches in those photographs, by the way. Mm-hmm. Set up. So, okay, go on then to nothing further in the correspondence. Anybody? Councillor Corral.
Just very quickly, there is a BC Hydro Clean Power webinar on the July 14th. There's reference to your special committee on reforming the police act. And then there's Mayor Bill Dingwall of the city of Pitt Meadows, is a call to support the Truth and Reconciliation Commission call to action. Peter Julian seeking endorsement on a motion against anti-hate crimes and incidents. And something we had a finger in was the Ministry of Social Development and Poverty Reduction, Re-Accessibility BC Act. And we actually had a community engagement that we received funding for to have our input with the development of that act.
I did make my presentation to the Police Act Review Committee on Zoom last week, I guess, and with the city of Rossland and the city of Castlegar. We made presentations. We had about an hour. Unfortunately, my internet went out about 45 minutes into it, but I did get a presentation and did respond to questions in that period of time, so it was good. Okay, moving on to bylaws, of which there is the zoning amendment bylaw for 1100 Gibsons Way, and the recommendation that the bylaw be adopted. Councillor Crowell, Councillor Diandrad, thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much. That's adopted. And then the second reading on the zoning amendment bylaw for case Gain. I got to recuse myself on this point. It's a second reading of bylaw, first and second reading rather. So I will recuse myself. And appropriate there. So, and Councillor Diandrad, I'll let you take it on.
Yes, please. Well, we have a recommendation for zoning amendment by law 1065-61 703 Gibsons Way. That zoning amendment by law number 1065-61 2021 be given first and second reading. Okay, motion. Sorry. Moved by Councillor Crowe, second by Councillor Lumley. All in favor? Thank you. It passed. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to unfinished business, none, new business, none, notice of motions, none, inquiries. Corporate officer?
Yes, we have one person. Judith Bonkoff is joining you. Is she there? Oh.
There she is. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Hello,
you got-
everybody.
Hello.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. That's a little bit different format. I haven't been around for a couple of weeks, so you can hear me?
We can, thank you.
Okay, good. I just I'm looking at this and listening to the CAC stuff and the survey and everything else that's going with it. And I just would like to know how we can get the numbers. The numbers for comparisons, Mayor Beamish, you mentioned it, as far as what we've been charging and what kind of, you know, whether we're going to get more money for CACs. And I think the public needs to know whether we're going to get more, because there's a finite amount of land that can be developed and for uplift. And I really think this is important because we haven't been getting enough money in the past. So I think that's important. The other thing is the surveying and how can you get the town to participate more in these surveys? They maybe need to go on Facebook. Somewhere these surveys have to be obvious, and they're not. I don't even see them. I didn't even participate in the last one about the road changing direction. So therefore, if I don't see it, a lot of people don't see it. I'm watching all the time.
Yeah.
So if I could ask you to look at other methods of getting to us. August is a terrible time to have a survey.
Yeah.
Absolutely the worst month to have a survey. Oh, I'm so sorry. So I would just like you to consider those things.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And
Yeah.
I think you heard the council express the same views and
Yes.
trying to see how we can get response from people, because unless you create a significant issue, and we did get a pretty good response on the concept, on the idea of selling that lot on School Road. That quite a large response, but
That was last August, I think. That was last August.
Yeah, that was last year, but that did get a pretty sizable response, probably one of the largest ones we've had. So Facebook is an idea. I'm not on Facebook, but many other people are.
Well,
And-
that's where everybody is, and I know you're not, but most people are. And certainly, if it was on the community page, it would help. Also, the questions aren't enough. There should be a preamble about what CACs are. People don't know.
No, I think that will be part of putting the survey out. There will be a preamble. You're not seeing the survey, you're just seeing the questions.
Okay, but that's important because people aren't getting it. Exactly what we're doing with that money.
Yeah.
So those are my points, and thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for taking the
All right.
time.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thanks.
Councilor Corral?
Just to Mrs. Bonkoff's comment, all our surveys have been on Facebook, but you have to subscribe to the Town of Gibson's Facebook page. You have to follow it to get the notices.
Interesting, yeah. Yeah, once again, not on Facebook. But most people are apparently, yeah.
How many people on council are on Facebook, just out of curiosity? We're old school.
I go there, that's right. Yeah, people tell me stay away, yeah. Okay, council, been a big day, being a long day. Appreciate your time. We will be back again next week and do it all over again. And so next meeting will be held on July 13th at 3 p.m. Now, there will not be a committee of the whole that day. That'll be a special council meeting. So it's only kind of a half day for us. So that in the meantime, I've already kind of sent a note to Peter Hill that get going on music. I wouldn't mind seeing buskers there, as I say, this coming weekend, if you can find people just out there playing music. So that just to create some life in Lower Gibsons, that would be great. Anything else, council wishes to add?
Hey, there's life in Lower Gibsons.
There's, I know, actually, your place, Heather and I stood on the wharf the other night looking down at your place. It was really bustling, as well as the Lanitas beside it. A very, very active area, and I could see that whole frontage being like that one day. So
People are coming.
they are.
I've given up. You have to know somebody to get into Smitty's nowadays.
It was my birthday, and I thought Heather was going to take me there, and we just couldn't get in, so that was okay. Anyway, guys, thank you very much. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Corral, Councillor Ladwig, all in favor? Thank you. Thank you, staff. Thank you, public, for joining us, and have a good night, everybody.